this scenario of the man getting an evaluation at the same time as the female partner is bravo.
And then at that point it was recommended for donor sperm.
And what were your thoughts when that was mentioned?
My numbers may be very low, but somewhere in there are good swimmers.
Nothing touches upon virility in a man or masculinity like infertility.
What did you do from that moment forward?
So I literally Googled best male urologist in the country, and your website came up. Dr. Turek, you said something to me that I'll never forget. You said, "I'll be with you until there's a baby in your arms," and that just gave us so much hope. You got it right.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of
Talk with Turek.
And man, we've never done that before. That's a little, cheerleadery or something, right? Well, we're synced. We're synced today. That's right. So on this podcast, what do? We talk about male fertility and sexual health.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 episodes in, we've talked about testosterone. We've talked about penises. We've talked about sperm. We've talked about problems with male fertility. We've
Talked about men's health in general.
And today we are actually going to tell a story and listen to a couple that struggled with their fertility. And
We're going deep. We're going deep on the fertility story.
they're a patient of yours, or were a patient of yours at one point, and they're gracious to tell a story that for a lot of people is very sensitive, very personal, and we're grateful for that. But before they come on, how you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, no, I mean, the weather, I like the misty 2 weeks in LA and all of a sudden 90 degrees.
Yeah, we were laughing because before we went on the air, it's like we were talking about the weather, and we never talk about the weather in LA.
No one in LA does that.
It's supposed to be 72 and sunny all the time. I will say
LA story.
I have been
that.
complaining about the weather because I'm not getting my 72 and sunny. It costs too much to live here and not get your 72 and sunny.
True.
My wife Avery has a plan for us to redo the front yard, our landscaping.
Today?
It was today, and I talked myself out of it. So my kids' graduation is in about a month, and we have grandparents coming, and we're going to have a party or two. Yeah. And she's like, I would like for my front yard to look nice for once. I will selfly admit that I'm not much of a green thumb, and I don't like to mow the lawn.
But you said not today.
So I said, babe, I can't do it today. It's going to be 96 degrees outside. I'll die. I'll have a heart attack of some sort. Also, today here in South Pass, by the way, is dumpster days. It's a very important day for us here in South Pass. What they do is the Athens Trash Company, they roll out these dumpsters, and if you're a resident, you can put anything in the dumpster that you want. You can get rid of a body. You can do whatever you want. I do have in the car,
the secret side of Pasadena.
That's right. In the car, I have like an old TV. I have an old pop tent, things that have just been broken. I'm going
to come up and join you for a cup of coffee. And
dump some stuff.
The refrigerator.
Yeah, it's all good. How's the practice in general?
Beautiful. Yeah, no, it's great. Lots of international draw, and I think people... I watched you on the podcast, come into the office, and it's just, it's nice because they know what to expect when they come to me because they know how I'm thinking. And actually, they're more appropriate patients because they'll say, we've tried this, and this, and nothing's worked, and we think you might be able to solve our problem, which is similar to the problem today that we're going to have our patient on.
Kind of important, and it shows
it's my
why,
favorite kind of patient.
Exactly. It shows why we do this show, though. There's one thing is you're more familiar to your patients. That's great. They can see and hear you and go, oh, this is the guy that I want. Like you said, they're coming to you going, we think you can help us.
Much more focused. The patient came in yesterday and all smiles, but with a fertility problem, but all smiles, a young couple. And they sat down. They said, good to see you again, Dr. Turek. Boom. And showed me a picture of their 1-year-old Stephen. Looked like all frizzy hair, lots of hair, cute as a button. Looked like a cowboy outfit at age 1. And he said, we almost named him after you, but my husband's in the Greek tradition. You have to name your first son after your father. So he was named Stephen instead of Paul, but his middle name's Paul, and the next one will be Paul. And I said, you don't know this, but that's my Nobel Prize.
Yes, your notches are like these kids that have been named
after me. Yeah.
So how many kids?
Paul.
Yes. Do you have?
I have 12 Nobel Prizes that I know of so far.
Okay, so 12 kids that have been named after you.
I think so, but probably more. But
that is cool.
It is cool. It's immortality.
It is immortality. I chose not to name my oldest son after me. I'm the third Robert. So my grandfather was Robert Arthur. My dad was
Robert Arthur.
Robert Arthur. My dad was Robert William. I'm Robert Edward. And the middle name is our mother's father, right? So kind of named after both of our grandfathers.
So it's pretty neat.
So I kind of stopped it right there with my kid. I'm like, nope, I'm going to be the last Robert. Plus, how many kids are named Robert these days? Does anybody name their kid Robert? I won a couple Nobel Prizes. You've just challenged me.
You could call it a Pulitzer,
get somebody
maybe.
not in my family to name their child after me. Just for you, I got 12 of these.
Yeah, that I know of.
More.
Yeah.
But I need to do something impactful.
It's cool. It's cool.
That has people naming their kids after me.
To be remembered.
To be remembered. Today on the show, again, we're going to talk to Katie and Mike Warner, who I think I'll relate to their story very much, and we'll sit and talk a little bit about what we went through in trying to have a kid. Yeah. And both of us had a great outcome.
Yeah, and you were so moved you made a movie about it.
So moved I made a movie about it. So moved 10 years later that I'm making a podcast about it. So moved that you and I have been friends since.
Yep,
and
that's right.
this conversation is one we're going to continue to do. So let's welcome our guests, Mike and Katie Warner.
From Minnetonka, Minnesota.
How you guys doing?
Thank you for having us.
Weather okay there?
Minnesota is wonderful about 8 months of the year, so we're in those 8 months right now.
So Mike and Katie are here on the show today to kind of talk to us and our guests about their story of trying to get a baby and realizing at one point that they couldn't or were going to have a hard time in their journey from A to Z and getting their kids. Where were you in your marriage or your relationship, or even how old were you when you decided, I think we want to go ahead and start to have the kids?
So, so we got married in 2018, and pretty much starting in 2019, we got married in August of 2018. In 2019, we were like, I think we're, ready to start trying and open to having a family. And so we sort of followed the old-fashioned advice of it takes, wait a year of trying, and if it doesn't work, then you can proceed with testing. So we never explored fertility. It wasn't even on our radar prior, to after that, full year of trying. And so in 2020, we really kind of dug into, what might be the issue here. Like we're trying, I think we're doing everything right. And so then we each decided to get tested for, undergo fertility testing.
Can I stop you right there really quick? I do want to ask Paul, is that wait a year and see, is that kind of standard, a year of trying?
It's a couple of comments. I mean, if you're young and you're healthy, I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. I don't think you should worry about it. There's an 85% chance you're going to conceive.
Okay.
So I think that's a healthy approach.
Okay, Katie, so a year later, you decided to get tested.
Yep. So we actually both booked our appointments at the urologist and then at the OBGYN, and we got Mike did a semen analysis, and then I did just a couple blood draws. And from there we discovered AMH level, and the semen analysis, sperm count, motility, and we discovered at that point that I'm extremely fertile. My AMH level is very high, and they were like, you shouldn't be having any issues getting pregnant. And so then we kind of turned our eye toward the semen analysis and looked through that, and that's when we found out Mike did have low count and low motility were our two major issues.
So that's interesting because this scenario of the man getting an evaluation, certainly by a urologist, at the same time as the female partner, is bravo, because 23% of couples in North America get done like that. Usually the female partner gets a $5,000 workup and learns what you learned, and then they go to IUI and they'll learn at the time of a procedure that there's low sperm count. So having him evaluated concurrently with you is the national guideline, and that's great that you followed the guideline.
Very much
so. You learned it early. You learned the problem early, this saves you a lot of angst, even though you went through a lot of angst.
Mike, had it ever crossed your mind that your fertility was going to be an issue. And then what was this discovery like for you?
Yeah, what was your reaction, Mike? You're it.
No, it had never really crossed my mind that might be an issue. You know, you grow up and everybody's telling you the opposite. They're saying, you know, you better be careful because it's going to happen immediately. So you never expect that that's the issue. It's a downer for sure. I grew up on a farm. I was an athlete growing up. I work in construction, and so in a lot of ways, I consider myself a masculine man, and sort of. And I don't. So you don't expect that to be an issue, and not that it is a reflection on masculinity, but it definitely feels like that when you first learn that there's an issue there. And you just have to kind of go through your own process of accepting it and grieving it, and putting stereotypes and all that stuff aside so that you can work a plan to move forward.
It's funny, nothing touches upon virility in a man or masculinity like infertility, right? I mean, it's equivalent to all of a sudden I can't get an erection. And if you define masculinity or virility, it's in there. The fertility is in there, and it's an assumption. And there is no reason to doubt it, right? Except if you had chemotherapy or you had some surgery. But that is the classic approach. And it is, a lot of men don't know how to respond to that information. And I can tell you, some of them, it feels like the rug is pulled out from under them because they really don't know how that's possible. Because they live a healthy life, and manual laborers are, you're more masculine, you're healthy, nothing's ever gone wrong. So it's interesting that you use the word masculinity, and those are words that are intimately associated with infertility.
And growing up on a farm, and you look like you work out here, and so I can see it as a bit of a challenge at that moment. How are you thinking at that moment? Was there some disbelief? Was there some grief? Or you said you kind of
blame, guilt?
And then at the same time, then maybe what did you think you were going to do? What did you do from that moment forward?
You Google, and so you start, changing your underwear and changing your diet. And,
you didn't used to change it. You started changing it. That's good.
Changing underwear is a good habit.
That was his first problem.
I think I better watch
Got to start somewhere,
easy.
right?
The first step is you just you do your own little research, like any millennial, anybody who's grown up around technology and having a website answer for everything. You do your own research and you try to figure out what's wrong. It's especially frustrating when in every other way you're healthy, and doctors have been telling you for years, you don't even need to come to an annual physical. You're super healthy, and then you have like the first your first health issue in your entire life is something that is so surprising and personal. It's weird. It's just weird. I mean, you sit there and you go, well, like at least I'm healthy and I'm not dying. There's people all over the place that have different kind of health issues that are affecting them day by day. So you feel a little bit of guilt, like being sad about something like that, and you feel a lot of just like confusion about what to do next. So yeah, we saw a bunch of doctors and just tried to. For us, what was really difficult, for me, what was really difficult is we still don't know why. We don't have an answer. We don't have any. Like, I had a varicocele surgery because they thought that might be part of it. And my numbers, I don't think, really improved after that. I mean, maybe they did a little bit, but we just don't know why. And that's hard because you want to have answers for everything.
So Mike did the varicocele surgery, and then we jumped right into IVF. They said because your sperm count is so low, like we have to just do, IUI will be useless or whatever. So we did IVF, and at that point, it was that first round we did just a regular ejaculate with harvesting my eggs, and that we didn't make any blastocysts that developed. Then the second round, they recommended a Tessie procedure. So we did that, or Mike did that, and that actually yielded worse results than the first round. No blasts made it to a point where they were able to be transferred, and then at that point it was recommended for donor sperm. They said you really can't move forward unless you guys use donor sperm, we really won't do a third round with you guys.
And so what were your thoughts? What were your thoughts when that was mentioned?
That was devastating. I mean, you imagine your whole life growing up like, oh, I'm going to have a family, and like you don't, that doesn't even cross your mind that you might, be using, somebody else's sperm to create your family that you are so desperately wishing for and hoping for and trying so hard and throwing all your chips in. It's like high stakes gambling, like IVF is. You throw them all on the table and they get swept away, and they're like, all right, pony up, let's go again, and you have no idea what's going to happen. So the donor sperm was tough, and that's something we didn't really want to pursue. So we did start exploring adoption at that point. And so we did like the initial adoption inquiry, and did an interview and stuff like that with them. And then that's when we met you. So
Mike, donor sperm, Mike, what crossed your mind when that came up?
I have a lot of opinions about the way it was handled by the doctors in the clinic. I felt very much like a science experiment instead of a doctor-patient relationship. The clinic we were working with was very clearly concerned about their numbers. And for them, it became, well, this is the best chance for us to get a pregnancy, so this is what we're going to recommend. And it was the same follow-up appointment where they told us we didn't have any embryos to survive and transfer, that the recommendation was made to look at donor sperm. And so that
it was like whiplash.
The entire experience at that clinic felt very much like we were a part of a science experiment. Like they were trying to get an outcome with us, and they didn't really care about what happened to get that outcome. They only cared that they got a pregnancy. And for us, that wasn't ever the case. That, to even like every step of the way, that's kind of how it felt. And this was like the final moment where that felt really bad, because it felt like you don't even know if that's something we're interested in. You don't even, like, we haven't discussed as a couple, and we haven't discussed with you as our doctor whether somebody else's sperm is something that is even ever going to fly with us. So we told them on that call, that's a no, we're never going to do that. That, we will do adoption. We will keep trying at this. We also knew, because of, I used to teach math. I have a elementary understanding of ratios and probability. So my numbers might be very low. my numbers may be very low, but somewhere in there are good swimmers. They might be harder to find.
It just takes one,
but they're there. So the chance that we needed a clinic, and we needed somebody who was going to help us find the best swimmer, and who was willing to try multiple times and not be concerned with their numbers, like do what's right for the patient and not what's right for the numbers. Because we knew that it could happen, and it might take a while, and it might take a lot of tries, but that it could happen.
We were having a similar experience, except it was my wife was where we were focusing on. I did not get myself checked at the same time. That's why I applaud you. That's one of the reasons why we do this podcast, is to promote that the male sexuality and fertility is
sperm
just
matter,
as important.
men matter. Fertility is a team sport.
50% of the problem is the male. So that's just, if anybody's listening to anything on this podcast, I would say start right there in full equality. Let's go at this as a team and see what we can do together. But that one of the things that was proposed to us was a donor eggs, and so for you, donor sperm. And I will say my first reaction and her first reaction was like, no way, not even thinking of it. We're going to go down the path of having it be ours.
So how did I come in at this point?
So I Googled, I was like, okay, Mike, forget that clinic. We're done with them. We're figuring out who else we can go to, because they're clearly not going to help us in the way that we want to be helped, or try anyway. So I literally Googled best male urologist in the country.
For infertility.
And your website came up. Truly.
That smile.
Your SEO person needs a raise, right? To be top on Google, that's the way to go.
Especially with all the IVF ads in front of you.
That's right. And so when you do that and you say, okay, well, this is the guy.
Yeah, I'm in California, you're in Minnesota, Minnetonka, Minnesota.
So how did it go from there?
Just the whole process was, when we talked to the urologist here, I had two different urologists here, and they both said, yeah, nobody's going to be able to do anything else for you. This is
We did go to the top 2 urologists in the Midwest.
Top 2 urologists in Minnesota we went to, and they both said, this is just what you're dealing with. And so it really comes down to Katie being persistent and being her own advocate more than anything else, and being abnormally persistent in finding solutions and doing anything possible. So once we found you, I think we scheduled an initial phone call, and the initial phone call did nothing more than give us hope.
Yeah.
I probably couldn't remember exactly what the conversation was, but it did nothing more than just say, it's not a lost cause. There's some hope here. We could maybe still identify why this is going on, but even so, if you look at your numbers, it seems like we should be able to find. You don't have 0 sperm. There's some guys out there who have 0 sperm. So seems like we should be able to try some things. And then you talked about your new procedure with the Zymot chip and a number of other things that gave us a lot of hope. But
it sounds like too, Paul, that you were concerned with them getting a kid with Mike's biologic, his sperm, right? Yeah. So the difference right there that I've heard is past clinic was looking to get a pregnancy, but you said to Paul, we want it to be a natural pregnancy, not a donor sperm. That's our goal. And he heard that, and that became his goal, right? So it's not, no, the best way if you guys really want to be pregnant is to do this. It was like, I understand that. That is something that I think, you do. Your bedside manner is at least authentic and a good conversation. Say, what's the goal? Okay, we're a team now, and we're gonna do.
And we're going after your goals, right? So it's so hope floats all boats.
That's good.
I mean, just the fact that you have sperm, I mean, you're already a minority in my practice. And so I always take that as, okay, we have something
to work with here.
And then the second point is the urologists are very good. I probably know them. But if they can't operate or do something quick to fix it, they sort of give up. And my point is that doesn't help you get your goal. You have to put your back into it. And you have to look at that patient and say, what are their goals? I had a couple of Amish patients this week. They're saying, we're not doing IVF. We're not doing adoption. We want our own child, our own biological child, or not. That's it. And that's sort of what you're saying. And so those are the constraints. It doesn't mean you don't have a job. You have to work within constraints. And the question is, who's going to put their back into you and say, okay, let's get them what they need. It may not be surgery for you or anything. It's the best care. And it's going to get you the outcome.
One other thing before we move on too, because you've already had 2 IVFs, you've already had 2 surgeries, and then it's like, okay, we're going to quit, fucking around here, and we're going to get our baby, and we are, and I hear it. Katie is the one that was relentless to say, we're gonna find a solution to that. So we found the right person, even to the point that you all said you were looking at adoption.
Yeah.
Right. And I just, in the mental health part of all this, I will say that my wife and I were the same. Rather than look to do a donor egg or a donor sperm, we looked to adoption. There's something there where we wanted it to be both of us or neither of us. Right. And I feel like that's similar to you and very common. Right. Yeah. So we'd rather help a young child in need that doesn't have parents, and we can really get into that and be missional about that. And you probably would have been great, but the universe blessed you with some of your own. So let's continue down that path. So you give them a call. You've already gone through these surgeries. Now, Paul, what is the diagnosis and what is the path towards getting Mike?
So Mike has been through a lot. It hasn't worked. Young partner. So first of all, blame sperm. So I'll defend them and I'll prosecute them.
Yeah.
But if they're good, I'll clear them. And if they're not, but you can poke at sperm and you can. So the question is, just because he has a low sperm count doesn't mean it's bad sperm.
Okay.
So, maybe he doesn't have all the soccer players on the field, but maybe they're a really good team.
There's a couple really good ones in there.
Right. So you have to pivot as a urologist and say, okay, it looks like it might be unexplained, possibly genetic, because everything to improve it, lifestyle, medications, surgery, has not helped. So it's probably not fixable to get his sperm count up to get them fertile. But it also appears that there might be a problem with the sperm performance of the stuff he has, and that can be checked. So we checked it. We did a test called the DNA fragmentation rate. It was sort of borderline high. That could be the issue. Not the sperm numbers, but the issue, because the sperm numbers were fine for technology. And then I offered a solution for that. So usually for DNA fragmentation, it's, healthy lifestyle, stop bad habits. He doesn't have any. Take a good antioxidant supplement, and maybe sort the sperm with some new technology, which has been shown to do a great job at that.
Okay.
So they pursued that. Actually, I think you came out to California to pursue that.
So, and just going back to our initial meeting, Dr. Turek, you said something to me that I'll never forget. You said, I'll be with you until there's a baby in your arms. And that was just like, that just gave us so much hope. You got it right.
And you were right. You backed it up. Yeah, I hear it, Katie. I hear it.
So thank you. But yeah, so we flew out to California to, I was like, if we're going to do this out in California with this brand new team, like, let's do a trial run and see what technology, because you had talked about the Zymat chip test, and then there was the other test that we did.
Yeah, there are two ways to sort sperm to get the healthiest sperm in the bunch to be used. One is microfluidic sorting, and one is something called Pixie, where you put it on a plate and do a fake egg binding.
Yes. Yep. So
and we did a trial run, right? Trial run of both.
We did. Yeah. So we came out like the month before we were going to do IVF, and Mike provided a sample, and you did some in Pixie and then some in Zymat, and you actually gave us a choice. You said either one. It looks like we had good success in both, but you actually recommended Zymat at that time a little bit more over Pixie. So we decided to do Zymat when we were going forward with that third round a month later.
Can you explain Zymat and really what's happening there as far as we talked earlier about the fitness of it and things?
Yeah, so Katie and Mike came out to California, and I said, let's just go deep dive on your sperm that you have. And we did a trial run of 2 advanced technologies that are kind of new for sperm, with the goal of getting the healthiest sperm in the sample. So some of them may not be healthy, and that's why it's not working. If you just choose a sperm with technology like IVF, you may not be choosing the right sperm. I don't know if God or Darwin it's in the embryologist's head when they're choosing a sperm, right? The way it looks, okay. Is that how sperm are naturally chosen? So these 2 technologies, one simulates the egg binding to the sperm binding to an egg, and one simulates the cervical path that sperm would love to take. And it's a little microfluidic chamber developed by a friend of mine named Uktan Demirci at Stanford. Brilliant. He's a microfluidic physicist, and he publishes this in physics journals.
Yep.
And I'm like looking at these papers in physics journals and saying, Uktan, this is unbelievable. You've got, nuclear maturity, shape, DNA fragmentation, aneuploidy, all the things that are deeper dives with sperm all look better in physics journals. And I said, this needs to go on the market, right?
Right.
So anyway, it gets on the market. It's FDA approved. And we do a trial run of his semen to see if it works. Can we sort it? Do we get a result when we do this? Because sometimes it's low enough that it won't work. And it worked. It performed admirably on both tests. So we chose one.
Okay, so you do the test, and then you chose a sperm.
No, we did the test to show that it would work for them.
Okay.
And if it works for them and they get something at the other end, then it's probably going to be a better sperm than what was used previously.
Okay.
So then they came out for IVF, and we did that as an add-on technology to their cycle. So instead of I love embryologists, but they do just look at sperm, and this is a little more biological. And we use that in the same process, basically.
Sure. By the way, just to piggy up on that idea, is we talked to Neil Shah back in the day about AI's effect on this decision coming forward, right? Like not leaving it up to the embryologist.
Right. The first AI robotic pregnancy with IVF with sperm chosen by robot and AI it's a company called Conceivable. It's all automated. The first baby was born, I think, last week.
Wow.
From that, where an embryologist was not involved in selecting the sperm. it was so funny. They have a screen and they pixelate it, and within like a half a second, they track one sperm.
By the way,
and then they choose it.
That robot is never going to look you in the eye and say, all right, I'm not going to stop until you have a baby in your arms, right? So we're making that point on this show that you need both, and that this is not just science and physics.
Well, this is wisdom.
It's wisdom, and it's marriages, and it's motherhood, and it's 30 years of expecting you were just going to be a mom, and now it's not happening, right? That's what I made my movie about. So when you see it, you're gonna like that. But
you're gonna cry when you watch this movie.
All right, we've done Zymot technology and Pixie.
Yeah. So the point of my practice is that, okay, I can't fix the sperm count, but can I get them the pregnancy they want, the biological child they want? It's just you pivot, but you have to know more than just being a urologist. You have to say, okay, the sperm might be the problem here. It's always a team sport. I have the data. I know that it's always a dance, and it's a light switch. If you can get past that point, it'll happen, because the egg checks the sperm out after fertilization for the first couple days, and embryo development depends a lot on how that goes, and that's always a dance. Mm-hmm. And it may be a 5% difference or a 10% difference, then bam, it happens. And that's probably what was going on here. It was just not quite reaching the bar, the sperm that was chosen, and then you get the better sperm, and bam, the egg runs with it.
And what was that moment like for you guys when you found out that it worked?
It was a roller coaster. The clinic that we used in California was awesome. They were great to work with, and then we did a fresh transfer, because we also did a bunch of research that showed how fresh transfers had a potentially better outcome than frozen transfers. So we had 3 good embryos. We took the best one and did a fresh transfer, and we just felt like that mimics nature as much as possible, which is what we wanted to do. And we also saw some data that if you have a mosaic DNA abnormality, that sometimes those actually can correct themselves in a fresh transfer. So we did this fresh transfer, and we were hopeful. And then when we came back, we got the call from the clinic that our other 2 frozen embryos that potentially were good were not DNA. They didn't make it. They were not conducive to life. And at that point, we had another moment where our doctor that did the IVF procedure in California told us, I just don't know if it's going to happen for you. You might have to consider sperm donor. We'll see what happens with the one that we implanted, but it just seems like it might not happen for you.
You had no idea.
And then a couple days later, Katie was pregnant.
Bravo.
That's amazing.
You show them biology. Biology always wins.
Katie, so there's also the bit of a gestation period there. Once you're pregnant, now it has to mature for a couple of weeks. Now we're watching it. Was it a normal, healthy pregnancy at that point?
It was, yeah. Yeah. It was a fresh transfer, and it was successful. No issues throughout pregnancy. Always the beginning, you're so on pins and needles, like for sure, like during the first trimester, or, at least halfway through the first trimester, you're a little nervous. I think I was nervous all the way up till the end, but
I'm still nervous.
Yeah. But
I'm still nervous.
Yeah, it was a great healthy pregnancy, no issues there. I actually cooked her all the way to 41 weeks. I was 8 days overdue, so it was a long one, but it was worth, obviously worth.
So you said her. So what's her name?
Winnie. She turned 2 in January, and then we were so nervous about it. We had to start all over again with round 4, and we knew we wanted more than one child, so we decided to jump in again, 4th round when Winnie was 9 months, because we were like, we don't know if it's going to work right away or take 4 years, and so it was the 4th round was successful, and we have a 9-month-old daughter too.
Wow.
Somebody's got a babysitter right now.
We knew an embryo in there because we already knew that Katie was super fertile. She was this Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
We knew
Garden
that once
of
we got
Eden, Katie. I love that.
Once we got a good embryo in there, we knew that it was going to be. I felt good once we got one in there, and so when we came to the next round, it was just crazy. Once we had our protocol that worked the first time, We expected to have to do 2, 3, 4 rounds again. But once we had this protocol
with the Zymot.
We didn't go back to California. Our IVF doctor happened to retire, and we thought, well, there was a change in healthcare coverage, so we actually had benefits for our second child through IVF, which is awesome. Yeah, and we thought, let's see if there's a clinic more nearby that maybe could follow the same protocol since our doctor retired. And we found a clinic in Minneapolis, and they have a really good lab. And we learned something new with them, which we can go into if you'd like. But basically, they agreed to follow Dr. Turek's and our California clinic's protocol, even though it's not their normal protocol. They agreed to follow it exactly how we did it the first time, and it worked again on the first time on a fresh transfer.
We basically walked in and we're like, if you guys aren't willing to do this, then we are going to go back out to California.
Wow. That's really smart. You guys have to own your own medical path, man. You really have to own it. And if something works, don't fix it.
It's an interesting play because you come in helpless and guilty, and then you walk out in control because you paid attention to your biology and your humanity and your, and what you felt mattered in your life. You stuck to your principles, and that wins. That always wins.
What would you all say to you guys at the beginning of this journey?
I'll go first. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. So our first entire year of this just never felt right to me. It felt off every meeting I had with doctors, every step of the way. It just felt off. It felt like we were forced. It felt forced. It felt like we were in a science experiment, or like we were, at a used car shop. It really felt kind of gross, honestly. It felt like we were being sold something. It just did not feel like we were being treated as medical patients or as human beings looking for medical advice. It didn't feel like anybody in the world, until we met Dr. Turek, anybody in the world was an expert in male infertility. Mm-hmm. It felt like there were female infertility experts everywhere you turn. Mm-hmm. Every clinic, every hospital, every clinic system seems to have female infertility experts. But for male infertility, it's like, okay, varicocele didn't work. Ugh, I guess,
Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
So
right, truly.
That's the thing. If it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And then because there isn't male fertility, there's not pervasive male fertility experts in every clinic, that they're not going to find you. You got to find them. You got to be your own advocates.
Mm-hmm.
Katie, how about you?
Yeah, I would definitely say advocacy. I mean, I started an Instagram page because I felt like I wanted to just tell our story and share what we had been through, because it feels so like the male side isn't talked about enough, and so we have to just get the word out and tell people to, just keep pushing, and you'll know when you've kind of exhausted your resources. There was something that was inside of me that just said, we're not done yet. We're just gonna fold it up and just say, well, okay, I guess we're just not gonna have kids then. It's I knew that there was something more we could do, and so I just kept pushing and kept advocating for ourselves. And we had a lot of conversations around next steps and what we should do, and we both decided let's just throw everything we can at it and see what happens. And we were fortunate enough to have positive outcomes. I know that's not the case for everybody, so I want to be sensitive to that too. But
yeah, in sharing my story too, the first thing that I would say is, when I was in your shoes, I didn't want to hear success stories, right? And that's really hard. At the same time, they need to hear the success stories. At the same time, we're trying to shorten the distance between when you started and when you felt the hope. You had to get a couple of IVFs and a couple of surgeries, to at some point go, no, this doesn't feel right. We're going to change course and we're going to do what feels right. It's amazing how far into it you get, and the disappointment that might shock you into saying, no, I need to find the right person or the right path for me. So I applaud you guys for doing that.
Probably sounds really naive, but I was just shocked when I learned oh yeah, okay, so this is a for-profit IVF clinic. And I'm sure there's plenty of ways. I think the other 2 IVF clinics we used were also for-profit, but just it felt very much like we were the for-profit part of one of our clinics was front and center. I feel like they recommended a surgery I didn't need that they performed. And I feel like they were trying to have us do as many rounds as possible to get to that successful data point, which is a pregnancy. And looking back on it, it just felt very like manipulative almost. And that might be being a little too harsh on them because that's how I emotionally feel about it.
Right.
But that is definitely how I felt looking back on it. But I just have like 2 more things to say, if it's okay.
Yes, please.
Thing number 1, my mom is old fashioned and never would have even like known about IVF if we didn't go through this, and very supportive. But I just remember she said this to me, and she would say this about people growing up. A lot of times people who are not able to get pregnant and have a child, it's stress. Then, once they relax, either because they start an adoption process or they just decide, you know what, it's okay and I can accept the fact that it's not going to happen. Then suddenly they get pregnant. And she has like a lot of stories about that. I don't know if there's science backing that up, but she has a lot of stories about how, stress, once the stress of the performance goes away, then sometimes it works out. That wouldn't have happened for me knowing my numbers, but Dr. Turek brought humor to every conversation that we had, and the combination of humor and hope is really important because it puts you at ease. And I think your performance, your health improves when you're at ease and when you feel good and when you feel positive about what's going on. So the use of humor to me was very important. I mean, it is humorous, the things that we're talking about. Well-being, sad and important and critical to our mental health and wanting to have babies. It's also like, this is in some ways kind of silly stuff that we're talking about. So to not bring humor to it is ridiculous. And the other thing I would want to say is what we learned from our clinic in Minneapolis is, like he said, it takes 3 components to have a successful IVF round: sperm, eggs, and lab. And nobody had ever pointed the 3rd one out to us. It's like, okay, different clinics have different quality of labs. And that when you are dealing with bad sperm counts, low sperm counts, and potentially like sperm with mobility problems and motility problems, lab is really important. And he was like, we have the best lab in the, here are the articles. We have the best lab in the metro. We have the best lab in the Midwest. We've won awards. And that, to me, that 3rd component of, okay, like ask about their lab. Ask about their lab's success rate is really important.
So I agree that IVF has become a business, too much of a business in America. It definitely is. And it's not necessarily great, but I applaud Katie and Mike because I think that you did things early, correctly, and you stuck to your gut, and you got it done pretty fast. I mean, and I don't think people realize this, but hope floats it for sure, because you probably would have done something differently without hope. But also you'll find money. If you have hope, you'll sell an old truck, you'll get an extra job, you'll do amazing things
to pay for it, right?
I've seen this. Yeah. So there's hope, but then there's also, you need to have someone who's going to walk the walk with you, an ambassador in your travels, and you have to be aligned with your goals. And so I try to do that with patients. I think that might be a unique feature of our practice, is to walk the walk with them and the walk they want to walk. And that provides hope. Yep. And, I didn't know it was going to work or not, right? I'm just counting on the probabilities and what I know about sperm. And, sperm matter. That's the important point here. And it matters to check it early. And it will reduce a lot of suffering and cost to do that. We've got the data. I mean, getting guys evaluated and doing it right with sperm can get it done faster and cheaper. Yeah. But the world of business doesn't want necessarily that to go forward. I spent my entire academic career as a professor at UCSF publishing on how treating sperm or improving sperm or classic treatments for sperm are always more cost effective than technology. Now, we had to use technology here, but you also have to pivot and say, okay, let's not focus on the count. He's got sperm. Let's focus on better sperm, because we still want to get to their goals, which is a biological child. Didn't get the Nobel Prize, though, I don't think. But
yes,
working on it, though.
You're still working on it. Still working on it. Are you all done? You got your 2 kids and you're done? Don't know?
Oh, good.
Somehow our 4th round was so successful, we got a few frozen ones waiting for us.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
We'll see.
So I want to ask you, Mike, now, I mean, you've been through 3-4 years. You started out feeling helpless and hopeless. What do you think about life now?
When I think about life, that's a huge question.
As an attitude now, is that hopelessness? Is there any left? Is there any helplessness left?
No, there's no helplessness left. As we hoped for, our children have changed our entire lives. They're the best thing in the entire world. Anybody who doesn't believe in IVF or doesn't believe in fertility treatment should just come hang out with Winnie for a little bit. She's brilliant. She's hilarious. And you can't imagine a world without them. So no hopelessness, no anxiety about what the future holds as parents. If we were to adopt, it would be because we want to, not because we feel like it's our only choice. I haven't really thought about it that way, but it is a very different outlook every day now than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new life, right? And what I love about couples like you is that eventually that becomes a memory. And it's a selective memory. It becomes a very short amount of time in your life where it was a struggle, but it brought you closer together, and you have a very new outlook. It's like surviving cancer. We talked about this with his movie. Getting through this process will either break you up or make you strong as hell. And nothing will tax your relationship or your life like this, even cancer. Mm-hmm. And that's what we talked about when his movie. What will couples do to get it done? The quality of life impact, which is now good, was terrible before, is the same as cancer. So what you're feeling, the guilt and the helplessness and the hopelessness, is just like cancer, just like having cancer. And you survived it, and it's not, and becomes a bad memory. And it's almost the same level of impact on all of your life, on all parts of your life.
And listen, welcome to the advocacy side of it, right? Yeah. Welcome to us trying to create a conversation for the future Warners, for the future Clydes that are going to be going through what we went through. At the same time, it's all physical. It is a mentally anguishing time. Yep. And I think considering adoption is something that I constantly say to people. Yes, unfortunately, not everybody has the outcome of their own children, and so adoption is there for them. Regardless, yes, I can see and hear that you all went through quite a life-changing few years, and congratulations on
bravo,
getting to be parents, going through the journey, both of you together. Mike, I don't understand, honestly, the being in your shoes, so to speak, where all the weight was on you. I was on the other side, and all the weight was on my wife. Katie, I also can really relate to you and know that it's a helpless place where all you can do is make appointments and research and find Tureks, and that was your job, right? And you did a great one. And so thank you so much for being on the show this week here.
Thank you both.
Let's tell everybody about the show, right? Let's start getting other couples to listen. Let's getting men talking about their sexuality. It would have been great to know, right, Mike, that you had this issue much earlier, maybe even before you got married. It would have been nice so that when you're meeting somebody, you can have the science and say, hey, just so you know, this is in my DNA, and it could be an issue. And then it would be literally less of a traumatic discovery when you're already, when you thought, oh, we're just going to have kids. So, Katie, I've noticed that you've kind of taken this advocacy seriously, and you're on Instagram and other places. What is driving you, and what have you been doing?
So I started an IVF page, like an Instagram page titled IVF Infertility Club, because it's kind of a common theme in the IVF community that it's the worst club with the best members. It's the worst club to be in when you find yourself there, but you also realize that the best people are around you, because everyone's just going through it and, sharing their stories and what's worked for them. I don't know. It's just you meet these people and forge these friendships that are lifelong, regardless of if you've had positive outcomes and your IVF or infertility treatment, you're on the other side of it, or if you're still going through it. It's just something that will connect people, I think, probably for their whole lives. So it will always be a part of your story. So I started that Instagram page just to share our journey, and and also to help other people feel less alone, especially with the male infertility focus. I thought it was important to share the male side of infertility. I've met some amazing people through that, and I've recommended the Turek Clinic and the clinic we worked with for IVF out in California to a number of people. And one gal actually just had a baby with her husband, and they were like, if it's a boy, we're naming him Paul.
That's the Nobel Prize he's going for.
It was a girl, but anyway, no. So
Paulina.
Paula.
So yeah, I just feel like sharing through social media and face to face and in this podcast and the movie, it's like we just need more voices out there saying that there's hope and providing people resources to keep moving forward. So
tell us the name of your Instagram page again.
IVF.infertility.club. So IVF Infertility Club.
Wonderful.
Katie. Yeah.
You will get a new follower today, I promise, because I'm
I'll
going
follow you
to. That sounds great. And please follow us at Talk with Turek on all the socials. On YouTube, you can find the podcast there as well. Like, follow, subscribe, share. Tell everybody there's a conversation going on about male fertility and sexual health. Warners, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And everyone, we'll see you on the next show. Paul, good one. Appreciate it. See you, everybody.
Thank you both.
Thanks for joining the Talk with Turek podcast. Today's show was executive produced by Rob Clyde and Jennifer Harris. DP engineered and edited by Drew Unser. Thanks to Avery Clyde, Shen Heckel, Max Flora, and Jonathan Raju. Talk with Turek is produced and recorded in Los Angeles, California, in association with Hey Babe Media. Subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and watch us on YouTube. For more information or to book an appointment, whether in person or virtual, visit Dr. Turek online at theturekclinic.com or call 1-888-TUREK-MD, TUREKMD. Don't miss our next episode as we delve deeper into men's fertility and sexual health on Talk with Turek. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Talk with Turek for updates and more content.